Hello everybody, Namaste, Jai Guru. My name is Nayaswami Aditya and I would have loved to share this program in person or live, but I'm traveling right now to the US. I am in Ananda Sangha, Portland. This is their wonderful church and temple over here. So I'm broadcasting and I'm recording this session for us all. I would have loved to take some question and answers as we normally do, for a theme like this. But I hope I get the chance to answer them. If you have any questions about this topic of the importance of anatomy in yoga practice and the neuroscience of yoga, please do share it with Amruta, Lata, or in the chats, and we will try to come back to you with an answer. So to begin with, friends, the theme is the importance of, you might say, anatomy in yoga, and my background is actually in medicine, in surgery. I get this topic quite often, and let's try to see what Yogananda ji, Swamiji shared about this and why you might say it is important for us to have this understanding of anatomy. Now, of course, there are right away in the mind, physical benefits come to the fore, that, of course, if we understand how muscles, bones, joints, they work harmoniously in tandem, we can lead to a very harmonious, safe practice of yoga and meditation. At the same time, I'd like to take a step back, because in Master's teachings, he fortunately gave us such good, complete details on, you might say, a microscopic level. And for example, I like to often marvel, and I share this in yoga teacher training classes, that I'm about to now turn 42. Well, 42 years ago, I was in my mother's womb. Give it a few more months, I was simply a single-celled organism at that time. When the sperm and ova unite, they form a cell. It is the repeated multiplication and division of cell after cell that, as Yogananda ji writes in his book Autobiography of a Yogi, leads to a conglomeration. The human body is a conglomeration of about 50 to 75 trillion cells, and they form themselves in such a way that we are talking. I'm talking right now. We can think, we can process thoughts and feelings, communicate something, digest our food, the heart is doing its work, the brain does its part, breathing is happening simultaneously, all the bodily functions. Think of all the organ systems. And I say this because I cannot help, whenever this theme, this topic comes to me, that this is so inspiring, so amazing. There are some quotes of Yogananda ji that come to my mind. First of all, when he said, we are surrounded, we are part, he said, of an infinite intelligence, and we are surrounded all the time with an infinite supply of energy. It may sound a little unscientific on one level, but he used to sleep 5 hours a month. And one may say, that's not good for you. Yes, for most of us, it's certainly not healthy. In Yogananda's own words, man cannot survive, he said, in the ordinary consciousness without going to sleep. But again, even if a saint, one person is able to do something like this, it makes us wonder that what a beautiful machinery, nature has created, God has created, and there has to be so much intelligence for that one cell to have the blueprint in the energy form, as we learn in Ananda Yoga, and also on the physical plane to divide itself into such beautiful functions and to carry them out for the most part on their own. And the second thing is that we are always surrounded by so much energy. Well, that's the prana, that's the life force. And once again, through Hatha Yoga, Ananda Yoga, which is an expression, a unique expression brought by Swami Kriyananda ji of Hatha Yoga, that he showed again and again how we can derive such benefits. I remember many years ago when I was doing my yoga teacher training, there was a particular asana, and the affirmation is, I think, energy and joy, flood my body cells, joy descends to me. And I was struggling to feel joy in that particular position. But I told myself, no, even if I have to do this, and we were repeating it on the left side and right side, and after some time, I disciplined my body and mind to cooperate with what was trying to happen, and I did feel to quite a degree that affirmation become a reality. And once again, the point is that yes, we are this physical form, yes, we are going to get into the anatomy of things, but keep in mind the physical anatomy, the physical expression of the body, or as Yogananda ji said, the proportion, the harmony with which organ systems and muscles and bones work with each other is an expression of an underlying harmony, which is what ultimately, sooner or later, we all will seek in our practice, in our lives. And that is the aim of Ananda Yoga. Ananda Yoga is a system of yoga to raise and expand our awareness, our consciousness. So from an anatomy perspective, well, first of all, it's very easy to see that, we are made in a certain way. Each body is different. Of course, in Ananda Yoga, we never compare how different people are doing the practice. We don't even compare to how you might say, pose looks perfect in a book. It is more about what is it that you want from that practice, from that asana, and what is, or here I may say you or many teachers are watching this, that what is the teacher trying to bring as a benefit to the student. Like I said, it may be inner harmony, it may be healing of a certain body part, it may be greater flexibility in the weeks and months of somebody who has joined the classes. And so if we can see each person for who they are, for how their body is made, and work with that, bring harmony to that, never to put somebody and be in pain, but rather, like I said, to each time just a little bit more, even if it's not physically stretching ourselves, it is about mentally going deeper in that affirmation. Or, as Swami Kriyananda ji said many times, once you've got into the pose, then relaxing deeply into that pose so that the benefits can come. And truly, that's how it worked for me. In that example I was giving, that I said, okay, I'm going to try my best. I was having a subconscious resistance to my body's flexibility and what the affirmation was saying. But when I changed my attitude, suddenly they both became one. And that is the beauty towards which you might say Swami Kriyananda ji is trying to draw each one of us. So keep that in mind. I've written some of these points for my own reference, so I'll then go from one to the other. The second thing we want to address over here is, how does yoga work on our bones, muscles, spine, and joints? Well, let's take the first one, bones. It is well known now for many decades, maybe over a half a century easily, that what really happens, let's say when we exercise, when we are stretching ourselves in a yoga asana, is that the muscles, of course, get stretched. The muscles are then attached to the bones and they tug on the bones. And that tug on the bone, normally we think of the bone as a very inert tissue. Oh, it's inside there. Fortunately, we don't want to ever see it. But it's not inert. It's very astonishing to know that every 2 years, all the skeletal cells, every single cell in the bones, in the skeletal system of the body has replaced itself. So the bone, the skeletal system, is constantly undergoing what is called remodeling. And that remodeling depends on your posture, the kind of exercise you are doing, the amount of stretch, the muscles, the tug the muscles are giving to the bones, and then the bone feels that through nerve impulses, through certain chemicals that affects our absorption of certain, let's say, calcium, magnesium. I've heard so many times people say, oh, I'm low in vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, and the doctor has given me these wonderful medicines. Well, that's a very good start. How much those medicines will get absorbed in your body to quite a degree depends on how much exercise you're doing or yoga you're doing. So when we are doing Hatha Yoga on a physical level, those stretches, which again, Ananda Yoga is a wonderful, collection of these asanas which very perfectly balance. If there's a forward bend, there's a backward bend. There's a left side bend, it is complemented with a right side. The point is, like I mentioned that word proportion, Yogananda ji spoke of proportion, and he said that because we have not exercised in a certain way, or our posture has been different, he said our body develops, these, you might say, certain tendencies, bones become weak and such. But once we start doing Ananda Yoga, energization exercises, bit by bit, you will see that everything about you, especially your skeletal system, changes. I know I have over the years especially enjoyed in a public event when people come to see how you can very easily identify those who have been practicing these teachings for a while, even for frankly a year, because their posture, something about, I'll go a little off topic now, but their face, their just proportion, like I was saying, the ease with which they walk, it's something is different. The aura about them is different, and it's because these practices bring all these benefits. Speaking for a moment about meditation, a professor asked Paramahansa Yogananda ji one time, he says, he had this list of questions, and he says, do your teachings bring peace to people? And Yogananda ji rightly replied, he says, that is the least they offer. He said, ultimately, my teachings help one to be at peace with the Creator himself. That what is life all about? Who am I? What am I doing here? Why was I created? And all those deep questions which, okay, in the beginning, maybe in Ananda Yoga, most people are not seeking answers to that, but Ananda Yoga is a wonderful expression of this entire system where, like I said, on a physical level at least, you start seeing those benefits and you start feeling those changes and benefits. Well, how does Ananda Yoga help with our muscles? Well, like I said, anytime we are, let's take an example. You're moving, let's say, into the Padahastasana or Muktasana. Well, certain muscles are engaged. You're holding them, you're breathing into them, you're holding that muscle and in a certain tone, and you're inhaling, exhaling. Well, you're increasing the tone of those muscles. That affects on a cellular level, the mitochondrial activity. It builds stamina. It builds mitochondria is what gives energy to the cell and ultimately to us all. So again, on an oxygenation level, we are breathing more deeply, we are breathing diaphragmatically. On a cellular level, the cells are engaged in a nice way. Blood flow is happening because there's nothing jerky or erratic about Ananda Yoga. It's very smooth and harmonious. The heart is engaged in a nice way, and that is pumping blood. So again, the muscles derive benefit from all these things. And if the muscles are in a healthy state of their tone and their, like I said, cellular energy production, well, then we feel energetic most of the time. Many of these aches and pains, and I've heard it from so many people again, I have that they had some sort of a chronic pain, weakness, and I'll read some of the benefits. Yogananda ji writes, lazy muscles can be roused and healed. Of course they can be, because you're engaging them now, finally in a proper way. How does the spine, how is the spine benefited? Now the spine, as we all know, is a wonderful, and again, if somebody is new to this class, which I believe, because this has been promoted very well, I believe many of you who are listening over there might be new to our teachings. Well, Paramahansa Yogananda called the spine the highway to the infinite. He says the point between the two eyebrows, he says that is the altar of God and seat of super consciousness, higher awareness, and I'll come to that in the neuroscience part of my topic. But the spine, you see, is what connects the brain to the rest of the body. We don't think about it, but apart for a few cranial nerves, every single nerve in the body originates from the spine. It comes at different levels. It branches out into the heart, lungs, internal organs, limbs, and the skin and such. And to a major degree, the health of your body depends on the health of your spine. I used to be a doctor, in the hospital doing rounds. When somebody is a patient, when somebody has lost, you might say, energy for whatever malfunctioning of a body part or organ system, how are they? What's their body posture like when they're waiting for the doctor, when they're sitting in their bed? Well, most patients look like this. They're sitting down, the energy is low. Well, the spine is where the energy flows in a major way. In the neuroscience part I'll cover, there are these 3 nerve channels, the Ida, Pingala, the Sushumna. On a physical level also, all nerves, like I said, they originate from the spine and they go out and do their functions. So if the spine can be kept healthy, if the musculature, especially in the back, can be kept in a good state of functioning, then we can keep the spine straight. Many people find that difficult in the beginning. In the beginning, okay, because again, we haven't gotten used to it. But I often remind my audiences, there are 2 categories of people who are almost never given a chair with a backrest. Can you guess who they are? Well, one is the patient. They are always given a stool, a revolving stool. And the other are, at least in India, security guards or guards, night watchmen. That now it's not to, of course, put those guys in pain, and it's nice to have a backrest once in a while. But somebody knew and had the wisdom. And yes, from a medical standpoint, it's easy to examine somebody's back and chest when there is no backrest over there. But another deeper, the yogic reason of this is, much of your energy, health and healing depends on keeping a straight spine. So if we are passively always leaning on something, well, we are not actively engaging our spine and the muscles, the extensor muscles. And I tell you, take this, if you haven't tried it so far, as an experiment. Give yourself 2 or 3 weeks. Not much, because I think this is, for most people, this should be enough. And in these 2 weeks, whether you work at home or office and such, try to sit with your spine straight away from the back of the chair. I tell you, friends, again, because the muscles have not been trained to do this, either we lean forward on a table or we lean back against a couch and on the couch and sofa, the muscles have not been given a chance to prove themselves. The human spine is designed in such a way, along with the musculature around it, to simply stay unsupported for hours. I know many people, once a year we do this 8-hour meditation. I myself and many, many others, we sit without a support for hours comfortably, because there is something about the way the spine is aligned that if we in the beginning get that, like I said, musculature healthy enough, then the spine simply is happy the way it is, straight, unsupported. The blood flow keeps happening. The muscles are not always working because they have a certain function to keep it like that. But once it is done, once the abdominal muscles are strong through diaphragmatic breathing, basic diaphragmatic breathing, we don't need that support, and that is very good for the spine. So once again, if the spine is healthy, the blood flow is good, the muscles are in good tone, well, the spine and all the joints, remember all vertebrae are separate, they are joined each to the other through joints, they remain stable. Another very important thing is through Ananda Yoga, when we keep the spine flexible, just like anything else, especially if you think of, sometimes if you bought a shoe, but you haven't used it, let's say for a year, or haven't used it enough for a year or 2, if you wear that shoe, you will see that it simply cracks, the sole cracks. And anybody who knows a little bit about shoes, and I've learned this through shopkeepers, they'll tell you that you have to keep wearing the shoe and keep that sole, which is often made of rubber, you have to keep it flexible. Well, the same thing to quite a degree with our discs in the spine, that if we just don't move them, they are never stretched, they are never exercised. And one fine day we say, okay, I'm going to lift this thing, or I'm going to do this heavy labor. And you hear many times people have a disc prolapse. The muscles are weak, the disc was weak, the ligaments which are protecting the spine and vertebrae, they get weak. So again, if we keep them functioning, then much of this trauma, nerve compression, and all these issues can simply be avoided. Remember, nature had has provided our spine and everything in there in a certain way for a reason. But you and I, now that we've given, you might say, this car of a body, we have to at least keep it moving and exercising to the bare minimum. And finally, if we speak about energy, you might say, moving in the spine, well, that is why the spine is so central. You know, there are so many yogis, Kriyananda ji used to remind us, who walk with a stick, a bamboo staff. And he said that is a reminder to themselves that they have to keep the spine straight so that the energy can be lifted up. In yoga philosophy, it is well known that when we inhale, we very intentionally lift the energy up the spine. Now, the energy is anyways moving up and down the spine. Actually, when we are not aware of our breathing, when we don't take charge of our breathing, when we are not doing a controlled breath or a pranayam, then when the energy moves up the spine, we inhale, and when the energy moves down the spine, we exhale. Well, a yogi takes charge of that. He says, okay, I'm going to do this controlled breath or pranayam, which more deeply means controlling the prana, the energy, the life force, which is why the inhaling breath is also called inspiration, because you can derive a lot of inspiration, strength, mental strength, willpower just through that one breath many times. And so keep that in mind, friends. And if you haven't made a study of this, we have many books to offer through Ananda Yoga, Raja Yoga, Kriya Yoga, which share this deep principle of, and other teachers will cover this in the classes on pranayam, that when we take a deep inhalation, deep breath, how the spine facilitates the movement of that energy. Well, finally coming to joints. On a physical level, let's simply say that the joint is kept stable by certain ligaments, but then also the musculature around it. Many times it may have been your experience, or you may have heard somebody, let's say, who had a fracture or osteoporosis, or osteoarthritis, where the bones, they rub against each other and leads to pain. Well, the first advice the doctors will give you after a joint replacement, actually before a joint replacement, or if they are helping you with osteoarthritis or healing of the joint in any way, is keep the muscles around the joint strong, because that way the muscles, it's their job to facilitate in the joint movements, protect the joint, help the joint do heavier work. But again, the joint itself, the movement and the musculature and the ligaments and tendons over there, they're all benefited to quite a degree by doing yoga practice. Let's come to the third topic now over here, that how do we bring an element, very necessary element of safety in our yoga practice. Well, first of all, and this is especially for teachers but also for all students, it's wonderful to get inspired to do yoga and join, let's say, a yoga class, but approach it gradually. And many a times, let's say it may be an illness, hypertension or insomnia or something you're recovering from, and that inspires you to take up yoga as a practice. But for that very reason, it is good to go through a doctor. There's a form we provide before you join Ananda Yoga classes in India, and it's simply, suggest you go through at least a general practitioner who can see your blood pressure, your eye condition if you have had recent eye surgery and things like that, and suggest that yes, you are fit for yoga practice. And then that form is very essential for your teacher, as he or she then makes a little plan of your yoga practice. But a few important things to keep in mind in yoga. First of all, start with a little warm-up. Don't just think it looks easy and let me get into it. It's really unfortunate to have an injury through yoga, something which is designed to give us so many health benefits, spiritual benefits, mental and emotional benefits. Why do we get injured? Well, because again, over-enthusiastic engagement without a warm-up, without proper guidance. Fortunately, those things are minimum, but again, why even one injury? Just approach it gently, and you'll see that there are only benefits to be had over there. So a few important things. If you've had a recent eye surgery, a strong cold, uncontrolled hypertension, pregnancy, especially in the second or third trimester. Don't do forward bends. Those things can be harmful, especially if people sometimes do the bend and then hold the breath. In Ananda Yoga, we are always insisting, keep breathing, keep inhaling, keep exhaling, because that can build tension, a lot of pressure in the eyes, in the spine, in the chest cavity, heart cavity. It can raise your blood pressure. But again, Ananda Yoga teachers are well trained to guide you in the way that is harmonious, but keep that in mind. Of course, spinal surgeries and such. Okay, let's then, friends, come to yoga as medicine. Well, let's say you are doing a very simple posture, Ardha Chandrasana or Vrikasana. Well, what are some things that we do during that asana? First of all, we gain our balance. We are either bending on one side or the other in Ardha Chandrasana. But then one of the most important components over there is diaphragmatic breathing. So right there, most people don't breathe diaphragmatically. It is very strange, but I think half the population does not breathe in the proper way. Now, once you get it, that you have to breathe diaphragmatically, and what does that mean? Well, as we inhale, the belly comes out, and as you exhale, the belly moves in. And don't think this is going to make you fat around the belly. No. If anything, actually, that wonderful exercise, is wonderful breathing is a wonderful exercise for this part of the body, for your internal organs. It's a wonderful massage for the abdominal organs. But also what that does is bring in more oxygenation. First, diaphragmatic breathing, then deep diaphragmatic breathing, the way you need to. There's a wonderful warm-up exercise we do called the full yogic breath. It's one of my favorite exercises and breathing techniques that just take a full deep breath in just 5 to 6 rounds of the Dirgha pranayam or full yogic breath is enough to shift our energy, and that shows that some yoga practice, and every asana involves breathing, how that can bring more oxygenation. And then on a spiritual level, what it is bringing is prana. Abdominal breathing has many benefits. From a little, you might say, yogic perspective, the Manipura chakra, one of the energy centers in our spine, is located right behind the navel. It is the third chakra from bottom up in the spine, and when we inhale, when we bring that diaphragmatic muscles and the diaphragm in action, well, you can imagine, and it's really happening, you're lifting the energy halfway up the spine. You're inviting the energy to come up, and keep that in mind. These things, that's why Kriyananda ji, he gave affirmations with each yoga asana, because there is certainly a physical benefit to derive from them. But there are mental benefits, emotional benefits, and like I said, if something as simple and basic as breathing, that can turn around. In Kriyananda's own words, he said, just by deep diaphragmatic breathing, he said, you have no idea how many beautiful benefits can come to you on a spiritual level, on an energy level for the entire body. So keep that in mind, that first of all, it oxygenates us. Now, I want to read a few things and then cover what might be remaining. I'll go through this fast. Now, I highly recommend all teachers to have this beautiful book called How to Achieve Glowing Health and Vitality. For your understanding, deeper understanding of health teachings as presented by Yogananda ji, but also of prana. The very first chapter from where I'm going to now read is about prana, about energy, life force. How do energization exercises, which we share during Ananda Yoga classes, how does deep breathing, how do these things affect our energy? So here, Yogananda ji is talking about Yogoda exercises, which was the name he gave to energization exercises. But remember, the same principles also apply in Ananda Yoga. So I'll quickly read through 1.5 pages over here, and it's thrilling to see how many benefits he promised through these exercises. Yogoda supplements and completes other systems of exercises. revolutionizing previous ideas of the evolution of bodily tissues and mental faculties. Through the right exercise of will, Yogada resurrects dying tissue cells and worn-out mental faculties and helps form billions of new cells. Through Yogada, all the various tissues such as bone, muscle, connective tissue, nerve and adipose are proportionately formed. Circulation, respiration, digestion, and all other involuntary processes of the body are harmonized and invigorated, and the mind is clarified. Yogada will be found to be the surest and most effective remedy for bodily diseases and inharmonious conditions of the mind. It acts as a healing balm for nervous abnormalities, stomach and abdominal troubles. It cures constipation by accelerating the peristaltic action of the intestinal muscles and quickening the secretions of the liver, pancreas, etc. It cures headaches, gout, and rheumatism by regulating the circulation. It eliminates colds and bronchitis by properly exercising the air cells. Brain power and memory are increased through greater blood supply. It raises the general vitality, resulting in the wonderful development of tissue strength and nerve vigor, thereby ensuring greater longevity. And then I'll jump 2 pages over here, continue reading. Yogada is both a method of cure and a method of prevention of disease, mental weakness, and suffering. It is based on truth, corroborated by experience, and strengthened by persistence. Yogada prevents hardening of the arteries and ensures lasting youth by stimulating an even circulation and helping to eject foreign matter from the system. It revives, enlarges and strengthens tissues, awakens lazy muscles, forms osseous or bony tissues, and accelerates involuntary functions such as those of the heart, lungs, stomach and intestines, capillaries, lymphatic glands, veins, and brain. Ordinarily, we have no direct control over circulation, digestion, and other involuntary processes of the body, but we can influence them by the exercise of voluntary muscles over which we do have control. And then these are just 2 pages out of many that he elaborates, and he goes into details of certain body parts, how they can be strengthened. And again, like I said, these are the same principles. And continuing further, because I want to then share that during the covering of the neuroscience part very soon. Now, you will see, friends, that with every yoga asana, Swami Kirandaji has given us an affirmation. And that affirmation is really, a very important thing. It actually differentiates us from all other yoga practices also. Now, Swami Kirandaji mentioned that Yogananda taught us, he said, you see, the mind is ultimately that which creates everything. To give you a practical example, well, you made up your mind to come for this class. Now, just by thinking, you wouldn't come here. You think, and you think well, and then you give it energy. Either you register or you've come in person, you make a payment, which is your hard-earned energy. And once your thought has been given energy, then you find that you are sitting here and enjoying this class. Likewise, if you make up your mind for yoga practice, you will see that it requires some energy and it has some benefits. Now, over and above, instead of passively doing some asana and looking here and there and at other people, if you focus on what your body is really trying to convey and benefit from, you will get that result. And again, remember, friends, in the beginning I said the body, yes, we are aware most of all of the physical body, but what is the physical body from a yogic standpoint? It is a condensation, Yogananda said, of life force, compacted life force. And what is life force? What is energy? He said that is compacted, condensed thoughts. And thoughts themselves come from consciousness. So if Ananda Yoga is done well, it makes us healthy on a physical level, raises our energy, changes our thoughts, the quality of thoughts we have, and ultimately it raises our consciousness, which is why it is called Ananda Yoga, for higher awareness, for higher consciousness. So keep that in mind, that the affirmation is a very important part, and it helps, how we are visualizing our health, how we are, like I said in that own example I gave of my practice, that how I thought the asana and the affirmation were like two poles, and they were not. They were, in my practice and level of practice at that time, they were different. But the moment they merged, actually I remember Bhajanaji, who was our teacher at that time, because she was guiding us through asanas, and we were going in, coming out as a group, and I was enjoying it so much. She said, well, let's come out of the asana. I stayed. She said, let's come out of the asana. And then I finally came out. But that is the joy, as you may have experienced also. And if you're new, I really encourage you to stay long enough. And it won't take that long. Remember, it was my first time. And very soon you see that those affirmations, they are an affirmation in the beginning, but they very quickly become a mental and a physical reality also for us. Now, friends, we have about 10 minutes, and let's go into the neuroscience of yoga practice. Now, this is a subject that has fascinated me a lot. My background, as I mentioned, was in medicine, particularly in surgery. And the Bible of all surgeons, the book of anatomy, is Gray's Anatomy. And I was very thrilled about a decade ago when one of the monks told me that Yogananda ji in his time, he did recommend, he said he urged all Kriyabans, who are the practitioners of Kriya Yoga, to look at the pictures of the nervous system from Gray's Anatomy. And I thought that was very nice. It's amusing, at the same time it's extremely instructive also. I compare it a little bit to, you might say, a map. You're going from here to there. You kind of know the direction. But if you look at a map, then it tells you, okay, you'll go straight, then you take a left, and then again a right, and you take another right, and you'll arrive at your destination. So you kind of know the flow of your car, the flow of your energy. Similarly, if you're trying to become aware of energy flow in the body, especially in Kriya practice, energy flow in the spine, well, one can clearly see why. If you see a diagram, and now these things are common, but 100 years ago when Yogananda ji was sharing this, it was not so common. Now we have so much information, videos and nice things about the nervous system online. Earlier, you can imagine, people had no idea how the nervous system was in the body. So, talking about the neuroscience, again, Paramhans Yogananda ji simply did not leave any detail outside, and I'll very quickly try to encapsulate what he shared. Well, first of all, he said, when you and I are conceived, he said, in our mother's womb, he said, when the sperm and the ova, the two reproductive cells, unite, he said, at that moment of union, he said, this is happening, of course, in the physical world, but he said, the body, which is in the astral form, in the energy universe, the astral universe, he says that contact of those cells creates an astral light. Remember, behind matter, there's always an energy reality happening, whether you and I can see it or not. And he said that intensity of that light from the union of those cells, he said, then souls that are compatible to that light, they are drawn to that body, and then into that cell, and then the cells grow from there. The brain is formed, the spine is formed, and Yogananda said the moment that energy enters, he says that point of contact becomes the part of the brain stem called medulla oblongata. It is the seat of our individuality, our ego, and it is the seat where cardiorespiratory breathing processes, those centers are located. Now, it's important to know that because that is also where prana or energy comes into the body. There's a line in the Bible where Christ says, "Man shall not live by bread and water alone, but by every word that proceedeth from the mouth of God." This is the mouth of man. Well, right behind on the other side is the mouth of God. And what he was alluding to is that the prana that comes in has sustaining power also, which is why once in a while we'll hear of somebody who doesn't eat at all, hasn't eaten in decades. There are yogis and saints. I have met one myself. And how are they living? They are somehow able to tap into that flow of prana, and that prana is just enough to keep them alive. On a meditative or yoga perspective, you may say many illnesses are healed because what does pranayama mean, as I explained earlier? Controlling the prana. Well, why are we controlling it? So we can enhance its flow. In illnesses, mental or physical, that flow of prana goes down. Well, when that prana ultimately leaves us, we are declared dead. In India, there's a saying, "Unhone pran tyag diye," that the body is here, but the prana has left. Literally, what that means is the person has surrendered or given back the prana, which is a deeper teaching that when we learn to control that prana deep enough, well enough, then we know the time of our passing and we simply hand the gift back, the gift of life which was given to us to accomplish something. We say, okay, time up, God, I give it back to you. So advanced yogis know the timing of their passing also. But anyway, that's another subject. Coming back to that, prana is flowing in our brain, in our spine, and when it comes down the spine, while we are still a forming body in our mother's womb, when that energy comes down, Yogananda said it is locked at the base of the spine, and that energy, yogis call it the Kundalini energy. And then that remaining energy keeps moving up and down the spine, because remember, it's constantly coming in through the medulla. So it leads to all activity, the growing of the body. Of course, there's physical nourishment, but remember that prana is the blueprint which then unfurls through the physical nourishment and through the physical growth, which is why when the child grows, or even as an infant, you say, oh, he has his mother's eyes and father's smile and such and such. Well, because there was compatibility first on an energetic level, on a consciousness level, and that is why it expresses itself outside. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because now that we are trying to practice yoga, meditation, energization exercises, Ananda yoga, practicing affirmations, all these practices help in lifting that energy up the spine. And that, on one level, you may say, is the goal of yoga. The goal of yoga means union, uniting ourselves to greater health, greater mental clarity, greater emotional happiness and stability. Ultimately, yoga means uniting ourselves with God. And that happens when we can lift that reservoir, that huge reservoir of energy, the Kundalini energy, which is at the base of each person's spine. When we can lift it up and bring it to the point between the two eyebrows, we have accomplished yoga. We stay in the state of yoga all the time. We become from an aspiring yogi to a yogi, you may say, who has accomplished the goal of yoga. And neuroscience is corroborating with a lot of this, friends. For example, the point between the two eyebrows, which I have been mentioning at different times, where the energy has finally to be lifted and brought up. Well, that right behind the point between the two eyebrows are the prefrontal lobes. Now, the prefrontal lobes, it's a huge topic in itself, but just to mention how important it is when you're doing, let's say, a forward bend or the Padahastasana, or you are doing the Balasana, or you're doing the full yogic breath. You are bringing that energy, you're bringing first of all greater blood flow to the front part of the brain, to the prefrontal lobes. The glucose uptake by the body increases over there, the oxygen uptake increases over there, and all these things can now be seen on a functional MRI scan. Now, what are the benefits? Why should I bring blood flow and energy to the point between the eyebrows, the prana over there? Well, the prefrontal lobes in the brain are the part of the nervous system through which you and I make decisions. Our willpower is situated over here. When you express resilience, it has been found people who are resilient or are going through a process which demands that, their brain activity is more at this point. Kindness, cooperation, the ability to learn new things. Maternal love is, I read this from a big fat neurosurgical book, and that maternal love, as they allowed for that bonding to happen between the mother and the newborn child, it was the prefrontal lobes that were expressing the greater activity in our body. Concentration, even little children, when they are focusing on something, they're trying to remember, recollect something, concentrate deeply, they knit their eyebrows. And all these things, through meditation, through pranayama, especially when we do it many times through the nose, you can feel that the body kind of sinks together. Your breath, your attention, your eyes, your awareness, all of these start coming to this point, and slowly, slowly you start changing. Another very simple way to see this is, as we practice yoga, meditation, much of the breathing and heart, these are life sustaining activities, they also demand a lot of energy. So when your breathing and heart activity can become calmed down, as Yogananda was saying, that becomes harmonious and a little bit more in the beginning in our control, and advanced yogis have complete control on these processes, well, then you conserve a lot of energy. And what does that energy do which is conserved? It is unleashed for healing of the body. So again, without going in details on, you might say, the neuroscience front, I would say the reactive process, anger, restlessness, fight and flight response, phobias of many kinds, these are situated and expressed through the hind part of our brain, the limbic system. And the good news is, it's not like it's one system over the other, but all parts of the brains, many of those parts are interconnected. So they have found when the prefrontal lobes are active, to that degree, the limbic system is quiet. And if the limbic system starts firing, the prefrontal lobe is not very functional. So we want to act more and more through the front part of the brain. We want to keep our spine healthy. We want to keep, from a yogic standpoint, our spine, and as the nerve channels are called, the nadis and the chakras, on which there is a separate class, we want to keep those healthy and harmonious. And I hope through Ananda Yoga, you can derive those benefits. I hope you enjoyed this session, friends. And if you have any questions about these themes of yoga anatomy and the neuroscience behind yoga and meditation, please do write to us, and I will try my best to come back to you with the answers. God bless you, and happy Yoga Day once again. Jai Guru.